Part 98. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 972. Anna's cheeks were slightly red, and her beautiful and soft face was even more seductive because of these two blushes. Her lips were kissed and turned red, as if they were colored, plump, and moistened by the saliva. With a color like roses, she licked the corners of her mouth. This action caused Brian to start to pant again, but she arranged her clothes in a slow and orderly manner, and straightened her long hair, with a look in her eyes. Calmly, as if she was not the person who hugged Brian and kissed passionately before. "Damn it, come here." Brian seemed a little unwilling to see her like this. He jumped up as if he wanted to hug her, but she put her hand on Brian's chest with a pair of cat-like eyes. Subconsciously, he looked towards Lily. It was obvious that he had discovered the presence of the people here before, with a wicked and charming smile on his lips. Brian reached out and held her head, forcing her to raise her head and kissed her hard. Suddenly he let out a muffled groan, but soon he kissed her harder and harder until Anna couldn't breathe. Pushing him away hard, he took a few steps back, grinning, and stretched out his hand to wipe the blood on his lips. Biting kitten, his lips were bitten, but Brian didn't seem to take it seriously at this moment. He stuck out his tongue and licked his lips clean. Anna snorted coldly, those pair of her watery eyes suddenly narrowed. In the carriage nearby, a tall but thin middle-aged man stood at a loss. The well-dressed old man who looked like a butler next to him frowned in embarrassment. "Mr. Brian, I will report to Miss Roman about what happened today." The gray-haired old man was wearing a dark blue robe. Although his expression was still calm at this time, there was anger in his tone of voice. When she heard the words Roman Saint, Anna, who was still sticking out her tongue and licking her lips, was stunned for a moment, and the smile at the corner of her mouth froze for a moment. Soon, the plump lips that were stained with blood and looked particularly coquettish slowly curled up again, and the eyes were half squinted, with an expression like a cold and arrogant cat after eating and drinking. Her gesture made Brian feel a little more ready to move again, after hearing the old man's warning. He just curled up his lips and sneered. "Whatever. Come here." Brian stretched out his hand to Anna, and did not even look away from Anna when he spoke. He stared directly at Anna, completely ignoring the serious old man. This extremely obvious disrespect made the silver-haired man, the old man's face, with his hair combed back, looked a little ugly. "Mr. Brian, this slave girl is a gift from my master to Grand Ducatory. Please be respectful. For the sake of Miss Roman and the temple, I didn't care about you. But I hope you won't do this again. Continue to be irrationally disrespectful." Anna ignored her, and the old man tried to stop her and moved Lily out. This made Brian obviously embarrassed, his face suddenly darkened, and he finally turned his head and looked at the old man. The sharp eyes suddenly narrowed. The expression looked a bit sharp and fierce. "Sume? It's up to you, but I have taken a fancy to this woman, and I will take her away. As for the gift you said you gave to the Grand Duke, your master can find another way. If you are not convinced, you can also go to the temple and complain about me to the archbishops." After he finished speaking, he reached out and took out his helmet that was originally thrown on the seat of the carriage, and threw it towards the old man. "Here, you don't have any cash coins in your hand. Go back and ask your master to hold the helmet. Go to the Temple of Light and ask me for money." In addition to exchanging the helmet for Anna, he also wanted to use his own strength and identity to make the old man afraid. But this move directly angered the old man, who had suppressed his anger. His eyes darkened, and he waved away the helmet that Brian threw at him. "Mr. Knight, you are so rude. Your actions have tarnished the Temple of Light. A knight should not be like you." When the old man said this, his back was straight. Even if Lily was standing far away, she could still feel a strange spiritual power beginning to gather around him. Leon's brows were raised and he looked at Lily subconsciously. One glance. Come here. Brian naturally felt something was wrong. He didn't expect that this old man who looked like an ordinary servant would suddenly burst out with powerful strength. He subconsciously waved to Anna, but Anna grinned. Laughing, shaking his head without hesitation. No, only if you have the ability to fight me will I know whether you are qualified to take me away. She spoke very straightforwardly, but this straightforwardness coupled with her hot and charming appearance made her even more attractive. When Brian heard what she said, not only was he not angry, but he was a little helpless because of her attitude. In the end, he could only grit his teeth and said, "Damn little thing, you will know if I am capable or not." He reached out to draw the long sword at his waist, and a faint bright fighting spirit began to emanate from his body. After all, he was also a knight at the level of Knight Commander. He had reached the gold armor level and was not an ordinary person. Therefore, although he could already see that the old man it was extraordinary, but he was not afraid. For a woman, Brian was willing to face off against this old man who obviously seemed to have extraordinary strength. When they met for the first time, he didn't even ask for her name and identity. He had already kissed Anna passionately. This girl is the plot. There is no doubt that he was the one who made Brian betray the temple. Today's date with Arturi was an unexpected surprise. It allowed her to find Anna, who the original owner had never met in this plot, at the very beginning of Brian and Anna's acquaintance. A smile appeared on the corner of Lily's mouth. After only standing for a while, she saw such a wonderful show. Naturally, Lily couldn't stay quiet anymore. She couldn't let Brian really start a fight with this old man. Brian was still her knight in name at this time. He is someone very close to her, and the old man in front of her represents the eldest prince of the Noer Empire. He has an extraordinary status. If Brian gets into trouble and incurs the hatred of the eldest prince, Brian may betray him for Anna. As soon as she walked out of the temple and waved away, the eldest prince would actually hold a grudge against her. Brian himself only has the title of a baron, and his family has long since declined. He has no father or mother, but the original owner is different. There is still the Roman family behind her. Even if Lily is not ready to let the Roman family do the same as the original owner, she was not prepared to bring any benefits to the Roman family, but she could not bring trouble to the original owner's family because of Brian. The birch bushes at the corner had just blocked her and Achuri's master and servants from behind. As soon as she stood up, Achuri naturally appeared with her. The appearance of these people made the group there suddenly stop. Down. "Dear sir, my knight has offended you, and I am willing to apologize to you on his behalf." Lily saluted the old man as soon as he came out. The old man was stunned for a moment, and when he saw Arturi next to her, he looked ugly. His expression softened. He didn't know Lily, but he could tell Lily's identity from the temple's sacrificial robe on her body. In addition, she said that Brian was her knight, so the old man could naturally guess who Lily was. "Yesterday, I heard that the girl from the Roman family who was sent to the temple was dating Achuri. Now that Lily appeared in Achuri's territory, I'm afraid this is indeed true. As the steward of the eldest prince, this old man's status is not low. To be able to serve as the steward of a true royal descendant, one needs to have a noble background and good skills. In terms of origin, etiquette, and strength, he is not inferior to Lily." The old man is not afraid. Lily wanted to give her face because of her apology, but for Arturi's sake, he endured this tone. Knights of the temple should be loyal, brave, kind, and tolerant. "Please forgive me, I don't see any of the above from Brian." The old man was offended by Brian. He was still angry at the moment, although his face turned pale. It softened a lot, but he still couldn't help but sneered. Logically speaking, as a knight beside the saint, Brian should contribute to the temple throughout his life. His spirit should belong to the goddess of light, and his body should be loyal to the saint. But at this moment, he passionately kissed Anna in public, and for a slave girl, he would take action against others. Even knowing that the slave girl Anna was a gift given to Achuri by someone else, he would take it by force. His actions were no longer worthy of being called a knight. The old man's words made Brian's face look a little ugly, and he put his hand on the sword again. Lily pursed her lips. "I have taken note of Sir's advice." The old man snorted, his eyes fell on Achuri, and his expression quickly returned to the serious and respectful look before. "Dear sir, the first prince knows that your majesty is interested in the slave girl, so I will personally deliver her to your residence." When Leon heard this, he glanced at Achuri subconsciously. Lily knew what happened today very well. When she and Achuri went to the arena together in the morning, the relationship between Achuri and Anna at that time, it must be the first time they met. She was also present when the two met. Achuri did not show the slightest interest in Anna, but now the eldest prince took the initiative to send Anna over. Something must have happened in the middle. Even if the eldest prince had an informant, it was his own initiative to do this, but Anna actually acquiesced. She could see that Anna was courageous, but she didn't expect Anna to be so courageous. Achuri was not that simple. But the matter had nothing to do with her. As soon as she settled Brian's matter, she stood aside. To be continued. P.S. The first update, 2 updates today. I originally wanted to add an update today, but I have something to do today and something to do tomorrow, so I will add an update after the work is done to report back to everyone. If there are no extra updates, I won't ask for a monthly ticket. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 973. Achuri glanced at Lily and did not miss her look when she saw Anna before. After hearing the old man's words, although the expression on his face did not change, there was a hint of amusement in his eyes. He reached out to unbutton his cufflinks. He opened it and rolled up his sleeves, revealing his strong forearms. "Interested in female slaves?" he asked first. When the old man heard his words, he instinctively felt that something was wrong. Achuri continued. "Is the eldest prince trying to humiliate me with a female slave?" The old man felt bad when he heard his tone. When he heard Achuri's words, he suddenly became anxious. He waved his hands quickly. "I definitely didn't mean that." After saying this, he seemed to have remembered something. And his face became a little ugly. "What you saw just now is definitely not because the eldest prince is trying to anger you, but because the people in the temple are causing trouble. I will tell the eldest prince about this later, and the eldest prince will definitely give your excellency a satisfactory answer." He thought that Achuri was dissatisfied because he had seen the kiss between the slave girl he was interested in and Brian. The old man had already been angry at Brian's previous rude behavior, and now he thought that Achuri was the reason why Tulai got angry. He was immediately furious and glared at Brian hatefully, with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. Brian was also a little confused at this time. Although the temple exists independently of the imperial power, in recent years, with the death of the Pope of Light in the temple and the disappearance of the Scepter of Light, the reputation of the temple has not been as prosperous as it was many years ago. He did not expect that he would provoke the eldest prince, if the royal family really wants to take revenge. Although he is a knight in golden armor, in order to appease the anger of the royal family, the temple may not protect him. After all, although the golden-armored knight in the temple is very powerful, he is not alone. The temple can no longer withstand any more troubles at this stage. He provoked the eldest prince, and maybe the temple will judge him for this. Thinking of this, Brian suddenly panicked. He was arrogant and proud, but he was not a fool. Although he felt that Anna was still charming in his heart, he also began to think of the consequences after he offended the eldest prince. He glanced at Anna. When the enchanting girl saw his gaze, not only was she not afraid to avoid it, but she winked at him in an extremely provocative manner and opened her lips slightly. The pink tip of his tongue stretched out and slowly touched her lips in an extremely teasing way. This action immediately ignited a fire in Brian's lower abdomen. He remembered the scene when he just held Anna's weak and boneless body in his arms. Her legs were wrapped around his waist, and the skin under her body. She didn't even wear any body protection in her skirt anymore. She was once so close to her. He always thought that he should belong to the Temple of Light both physically and mentally, but he was thinking about the moment he just embraced Anna. But he felt as if there was a sleeping beast in his heart that was being teased by Anna. This damn seductive little goblin, Brian couldn't help but secretly curse. At this critical moment, when he was still worried about his future development, Anna was teasing him in public as if nothing was wrong. He had never met such a woman in his more than 20 years of life. The previous candidate saints in the temple did not have such a coquettish and alluring character. He was upset for a while, and deep in his heart, but he understood that he didn't blame her. Even at this moment, what he wanted was to hold Anna in his arms and continue what he had not finished before. Brian felt a little upset because he had offended the eldest prince today. I remembered the way Lily apologized to the old man as soon as she came out. As if he was just her servant, Brian felt a little uncomfortable. I'm dating a lady from the Leguman family, and I'm not interested in other women at the moment. As soon as Arturai said this, he didn't know what he thought of. There was a bit of dark light in his eyes, and Leon was about to speak but stopped. From the corner of his eye, he glanced at Lily, who was standing silently as if nothing had happened. When the old man heard him say that he had no interest in Anna, he suddenly became anxious. The eldest prince and the second prince are of the same age. His Majesty the Emperor of the Noer Empire is now in good health, so he has not decided on the future crown prince. The eldest prince is of noble birth, and his mother's family is extremely noble. He should have been the most favorable candidate for heir, but his mother's early years. The second prince died a few years younger than him, but he had been favored by the emperor since he was a child. Although he was not as noble as the eldest prince, he had the emperor's support. In recent years, there have been many calls to make him the heir apparent. Although the eldest prince tried his best to plan, he did not have much real power in his hands. This time Achuri suddenly left the fiefdom and entered the imperial capital. He had always wanted to deal with Achuri. The emperor has an unimaginable respect for the Achuri family. With Achuri's help, the possibility of the eldest prince being established as the crown prince in the future will undoubtedly be much higher. It's just that Achuri is not easy to get close to. After he came to the imperial capital, many people wanted to please him and win over him, but they failed. In the past 2 days, Arturai had gone to the arena, and the owner behind the arena was one of the eldest princes. Today, the slave girl named Anna told the slave owner that there had been something between her and the Grand Duke, and said that when the Grand Duke promised her to fight for her father, because it was related to Arturai, even if someone repaid the Grand Duke, Prince. The eldest prince was overjoyed and summoned Anna to see her. She is indeed a rare beauty. Her figure, appearance are no worse than those of the noble ladies of the upper class. The fact that a slave with her appearance has not been discovered before and is kept captive by a powerful person is really surprising to the eldest prince, but he has met Anna. After that, the eldest prince became convinced that there was something going on between Arturai and Anna. Firstly, he never thought that a female slave would have the guts to lie to him, and secondly, Anna is so tempting. She seems to have an inexplicable attraction on her that can easily arouse men's desires. Even the eldest prince saw her. They all felt a little irresistible. Arturai was also a man, so it was normal for him to want to do something when he saw the charming Anna. He couldn't wait to have Anna and her father sent over. In order to show the close relationship between himself and Achuri, the carriage that sent the slave girl over was even very flamboyant. If Arturai didn't accept it now, if you give this gift, the eldest prince will not only fail to show his closeness to the Grand Duke this time, but will be disgraced and his prestige will plummet. Thinking of these serious consequences, the old man's voice trembled a little. Didn't your excellency have some relationship with the slave girl? You even promised to let her fight on behalf of my father. Have you forgotten? Who said that? Art-Uri asked back, and the old man subconsciously replied, she said. Before he finished speaking, the old man's body shook, as if he had just thought of something, and his expression changed. Suddenly he became a little pale. At this moment, he still didn't understand that both the eldest prince and himself had been tricked by this Anna. It was only because the eldest prince thought he had got an opportunity and was so eager to win that he did not consider anything else, so he gave this humble slave girl the opportunity to take advantage of it. Now if Achuri didn't take the slave girl in, he simply didn't know how he would go back and do business. The old man's mind went blank, and his body began to tremble slightly. Anna's eyes showed determination, and her lies had been exposed at this moment. In fact, if she wanted to fight for her father in the arena, she would not have to lie like that at all, but she still brought up Achuri's name in the end, not just because she wanted to escape from such a place. But there are other reasons. At this moment, the old man's resentful eyes made her understand clearly that if Achuri did not accept her, the eldest prince's anger would tear her to pieces once he was taken back. She can't go back and must stay. Her eyes turned to Achuri. Her bright red lips were like the color of roses, exuding an alluring fragrance. She bit her lips slightly, and her eyes showed a pitiful look with a somewhat confused light. However, she did not attract Art-Uri's attention, but was caught in the eyes of Brian, who was standing aside. When Lily heard this, her heart began to feel alive. There was no follow-up to her mission this time. She guessed that her mission should be related to Anna. After all, the only key characters in the plot were Brian and Anna. These two people are currently her only clues, although they don't know yet. What should he do with Anna? But Lily was instinctively prepared to keep an eye on her. In the current situation, Anna has become a hot potato. The eldest prince was sent to Achuri, but Art-Uri obviously showed no interest in Anna. She wanted to get this Anna so that she could sell the eldest prince. A favor solved this embarrassment for him. Maybe the eldest prince's connections would play a certain role in her fight for the position of the saint in the future. Secondly, she could also be close to Anna, who she didn't know what to do with her for the time being. Key people are placed next to you. In this way, she can decide what to do with this woman at any time based on how things develop. If Anna does something that hurts the original owner in the end, it will be very convenient for her to kill Anna. Thinking of this, Lily's lips moved, and she was about to speak. She made a voice, and Art-Uri, who had never left the corner of his eyes, spoke as she spoke. Although I am not interested in female slaves, I accept the eldest prince's wishes, so I will temporarily place this female slave. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 974. As soon as Art-Uri said these words, he ruined the whole plan that Lily had in mind. She almost spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked at him with a depressed look. He didn't seem to see Lily's angry eyes, but was very angry. He smiled happily at her charmingly. Your Majesty's wisdom and kindness, the eldest prince will definitely be very grateful for your tolerance and generosity. I originally thought that Achuri would not take in the slave girl, but in the end he agreed to take Anna in. The old man was overjoyed. Kuang, deeply afraid that Art-Uri would regret it, left quickly. This development was not only beyond the old man's expectation, but also Anna was stunned. First there was confusion in her eyes, and then she pursed her lips and smiled slightly, as if she had thought of something. Although the smile was charming, there was a cold, shrewd, and sarcastic look in his eyes. Lily was extremely depressed and got into her carriage and left Achuri's house under the courtesy of Leon. The uneasy middle-aged slave and Anna were taken down by the servant. Leon looked at Ichiri, who was still standing beside Ichiri. Looking out from the entrance of the Lee family's territory, he could vaguely see the shadow of the Roman lady's carriage. "Sir, I don't understand." Ichiri was not interested in Anna. Not to mention Leon, even the old man who was present could see Ichiri's displeasure with Anna. The face of the eldest prince is not important to Ichiri. Having been with Ichiri for many years, Leon knows his character very well. He has a very serious eccentricity, especially when it comes to women. He does not interact with any women. She is close to him, but has such a cold personality that some people once suspected that the new leader of the Ichiri family might not have certain thoughts about women. Anna is a very charming slave girl. But no matter how charming she was, she could charm a boy like Brian, but she couldn't charm Ichiri, but she clearly had no feelings for Anna. Ichiri's identity allowed him to reject the eldest prince, but he kept Anna, which really confused Leon. Although he knew he shouldn't ask such a question, Leon couldn't help but speak. Ichiri did not turn around. His eyes were still on the carriage that was going further and further away. It wasn't until the carriage went around several bends and disappeared deep in the dense forest that he laughed and said, "I'm leaving now, we'll take the initiative to come back one day." His meaningless words made Leon confused. Seeing that the Grand Duke seemed to be in a good mood, Leon had the courage to ask what he just said again, and expressed his deep doubts. "All said." Ichiri just glanced at him. "She has something special about this slave girl." He used the word she that represents women. The woman Ichiri has been closest to recently is no one else except Lily. Leon thought about it in his mind. Ichiri's words should mean that Lily paid special attention to Anna, a slave girl. Leon also saw the scene when Lily wanted to speak just now, but he still didn't understand. Lily wants Anna and obtain the gratitude of the eldest prince, so that he can use the eldest prince's support when he competes for the position of saint in the future. Ichiri can see clearly. He can also see that Lily does not want to deal with him anymore. This girl, the coldness in his eyes was no less than his, and he even had the feeling that if he didn't do something, he would definitely miss her. He felt a strong feeling when Lily touched his cheek. It was as if I had finally found the right person. He wanted to have such a person, but this girl didn't seem to be easy to get. If he were to use his power to make her submit, Ichiri felt it would be counterproductive. He has no experience in pleasing women, based on his limited experience in this area in the past. He gave Lily something, but Lily was very wary and refused to accept it. But he always wanted to do something. He wanted to touch her hand. The feeling was indescribable. If you can't use violence to make her give in, and if you give her a gift, she will reject it, then you have to use other methods. When Lily looked at Anna for a moment, Ichiri could already tell that she wanted to get the slave girl. Although she didn't know the reason, at that moment, Ichiri decided to keep the slave girl. "Come down." Although he still doesn't know the reason why Lily cares so much about this slave girl, maybe it has something to do with Brian, but as long as he keeps the slave girl, if Lily really cares about her, then she may refuse when he asks her out again in the future. Sex will be very small. Leon listened to Ichiri slowly saying that Lily was very concerned about the slave girl, and when he heard him talk about Lily not getting the slave girl, and if she had any purpose for the slave girl, it would be very easy to ask her out again, his face changed. There was a look of surprise on his face. But what surprised him even more was what was behind him. Ichiri narrowed his eyes. "I heard that there is something going on between the guardian knight and the saint in the temple. You saw what happened just now. If Brian shows up again, there is no need to stop him specifically and let him see more of the slave girl as long as Brian will pay attention. Put all your efforts into the female slave. Once he is fascinated, there will definitely be less time to pester Lily all day long. In this way, even if he didn't keep the woman who made him feel very special by his side all the time, she wouldn't be able to have anything to do with Brian. What's more, the lady seems to want to solve the eldest prince's dilemma and ask the eldest prince to help her. Archery, who was usually calm, seemed to be slowly getting better when he talked about Lily. How can that be done? What she should beg for is not the eldest prince. She should understand that I am the one who can help her. The festival of light doesn't last long. In the past, this gentleman didn't talk much, but today he actually said so much when I asked him. Leon was a little flattered, but also a little surprised when he heard his words. Leon didn't expect that it was just two ordinary dates. Unexpectedly, he would actually fall in love with the lady from Roman's family. Arturi's abnormal behavior in the past 2 days reminded him of the fact that this adult was already old enough to get married. When he thought about it, he felt sorry for Arturi's pursuit of women. His actions were no longer surprising. After reacting, he couldn't help but feel some sympathy for Lily. In the past, many people, including myself, thought that Arturi was not interested in women, and thought that if the Arturi family needed an heir in the future, it would be a headache. However, they did not expect that this gentleman usually seemed not interested in women. Not moved, I thought he was somewhat lacking in chasing girls, but I didn't expect that he was self-taught and could be so cunning and calculating. There is no romantic language, and he doesn't know how to say sweet words, but this method of catching girls is far more effective than chasing. Taking over the slave girl conveniently means that if Lily really has any purpose for the slave girl in the future, she will always fall into the trap obediently. Cutting off the help she might get from the eldest prince, thus making Arturi the most reliable person she can currently rely on. She no longer uses him to take the initiative to invite each other, but instead uses Anna as a bait, waiting for Lily to take the initiative. He can also use Anna to distract Brian, so that he can easily eliminate Brian's threat. In the end, he conveniently sold the eldest prince a favor. The eldest prince suddenly changed from the one who gave the favor to the one who accepted Arturi's favor. Not only did the eldest prince's efforts be in vain, but he also owed Arturi a favor. He suffered a dull loss, and he couldn't blame Arturi. He could only blame himself for being stupid, and this was a big deal. People have been keeping an eye on this slave girl recently. The eldest prince has lost face today. He might want to find an opportunity to kill and silence her. Arturi commanded calmly. He spread his hands, which had previously held Lily's shoulders. The warm touch of the girl's body seemed to still remain in his memory. He suddenly clenched his palm into a fist, as if he wanted to hold something. She is still useful now. The eldest prince suffered such a big loss today and will definitely be angry when he returns. Even if Arturi accepts his favor and he is not embarrassed today, a dignified eldest prince has been tricked by a female slave. Anna is playing a trick. How could the eldest prince be able to swallow this feeling that he had become a stepping stone for her to cling to Arturi? Even if a tiger falls flat and is bullied by a dog, the eldest prince is not someone like Anna who can manipulate him at will. Anna couldn't die at this moment, at least before he achieved his goal. She had to live. As for whether she is alive or not after she achieves her goal, what does it have to do with him? Finding out what the relationship is between her and the slave girl, I always feel like there is something that I don't know yet. Arturi sighed. Leon responded without saying anything, and the figures disappeared. In the birch forest, as the steady footsteps gradually faded away, the boulevard returned to its previous quietness. At this time, Lily, who was sitting in the carriage, was still depressed because she had not been able to get Anna before. She sat back in the carriage and did not speak. Brian gritted his teeth and stared at her from the carriage, with a look on his face. Unhappy. I told you not to associate with Arturi. Why are you disobedient? Brian remembered that he had offended the eldest prince today, and he felt a sense of uneasiness welling up in his heart, and he couldn't help but start to complain about Lily. If Lily had listened to him and stopped interacting with Arturi, then she would not have to come to Arturi's manor today. If she did not go to Arturi's manor, she would naturally not offend the old man in the eldest prince's residence. The old man glanced at him when he left just now. When he didn't know the old man's identity, Brian was a Golden Knight commander who was born in the temple. He had a special status, and the knights in the temple had high prestige. He didn't take the old man seriously. Now, once he knew that he had offended someone he shouldn't have offended, he was deeply afraid of being retaliated by the eldest prince. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 975. In addition, the kiss he had with Anna just now directly ignited a fire of desire in his heart, which has not subsided yet. Unfortunately, the beauty could not be taken away by himself, but Arturi got it instead. The worry in his heart, his unwillingness to get a woman, and the fire of desire that had not yet been vented made him a little angry. He suppressed the anger in his heart and waited until the carriage was getting farther and farther away from Arturi's territory. He spoke to Lily angrily. When he was in Arturi's territory just now, Brian didn't dare to breathe when facing Arturi. He liked Anna, but he didn't have the ability to compete with Arturi and the eldest prince. Now he has the ability to do so. Venting his anger on others, Lily really looked down on him. Thinking that in this mission, the original owner liked Brian, and she didn't know which direction the mission was going to develop. She had not won over Anna just now, so she kept her under her nose and stared at her. At this moment, she felt a little embarrassed. She must get in touch with Anna. Maybe this is her mission. But Anna was a slave girl before. When she was in the arena, she could still find a way to keep an eye on this woman, but now Anna has been sent to Arturi's territory. It will be difficult for Lily to get close to her again, unless she takes the initiative to get close to Arturi again. But that man was not easy to get close to. He was too deep-minded and not an easy person to deal with. Lily felt extremely bored when she thought about how she would carry out the next task in order to contact Anna. She would definitely have to find a way to get in touch with Arturi and get close to Anna, but she would have to think hard about how to make that man willing to allow her to get close. Lily herself had something on her mind. Instead, Brian came to ask her why she wanted to contact Arturi. His tone, which was obviously like venting anger, made Lily ignore him at all. She pretended not to hear what he said, closed her eyes and started thinking again. Recall the brief plot. Speak. Brian didn't speak when he saw her. Suddenly he became a little angry. It was enough that the powerful people in Arturi's territory looked down upon him before. Now that he has returned to the carriage, even Lily, who used to be docile and gentle to him, began to ignore him. Arturi thought of Anna, who did not hesitate when he got on the carriage. The scene of people leaving with Arturi. When he asked her to come over, the little wildcat rejected him without hesitation, and bluntly said that he could only take her away if he had the ability. At that time, Brian relied on his strength and experience and didn't take the old man seriously at all. Anna's words were like a kind of flirtation to him, and he even found it very interesting. But soon after he was defeated in despair, and when he was unable to take Anna away from anyone, he recalled Anna's words again. Brian felt that his self-esteem was a little hurt. He was like a trapped animal. Seeing Lily's face, he thought that she was with Arturi before. Each of these women only valued Arturi's power. She looked down upon him, Lily did the same, and so did the charming girl from before. The more he thought about Brian, the angrier he became. He couldn't help but stretched out his hand to pinch Lily's chin. Speak. Why do you want to meet Brian again? I have said, I hope you stay away from him. Don't you know that he is a devil? The goddess of light's grace has spread throughout the entire continent of Lowland, and temples of light are spread throughout the continent. Within the continent. Let go, he struck out in anger, and the force was not heavy at all. He squeezed so hard that Lily felt as if her mandible bones were about to be crushed by him. She tried her best to lean back and reaching out to push Brian's arm, he was very excited at the moment. Ignoring Lily's scolding. Instead, he loudly said, "There are temples of light everywhere, but only the Achari family's territory refuses entry to all temples. He does not trust the goddess of light. He is a heretic. He is a demon. Why do you want to associate with him?" "I already said it." "Brian, get out." Lily endured the pain. He stretched out his hand to pinch him, but Brian seemed to feel no pain. "Why did you follow him here again today?" "Wherever I go, that is my freedom." "Brian, don't forget your identity." Lily's eyes turned cold and she warned him, "Grand Duke Achari does not believe in the goddess of light, so as a goddess, you loyal believer, you really make me feel sick today. You betrayed the goddess, you even kissed a slave girl, you lost the calmness and loyalty that a knight should have. Your duty should be to protect me and be loyal to me, but you did not follow me around all the time and flirt with a slave girl in front of me." With every word he said, Brian's face became a little more ugly. His body gradually stiffened, and he stared at Lily in surprise and disbelief. Lily's eyes met his. "You even wanted to take that slave girl by force as a temple knight. You threw away the helmet that represents the knight's dignity. You interfered in my life. You tried to control my freedom. And now you are trying to hurt someone who you should have always been. Protector, Brian, you are not a qualified knight. I think I should report what happened today to the archbishops, and I think they will reconsider your identity as knight commander." After Lily said this, Brian's eyes turned red, and one of them, his handsome and masculine face, was ashen, his teeth clenched, and he stared at Lily for a long time. After a while, he sneered and let go of his hand. "Please leave now, I don't want to be in the same carriage with you, that will make me feel offended." As soon as he finished speaking, Brian clenched his fists tightly, and Lily stretched out her hand to rub he pinched his chin. Although he had let go now, his chin still hurt like pins and needles when he touched it. Brian's face turned green and white. After a long while, he stood up. "You have been seduced by the devil and blinded your heart. You should have been a pure saint, not a bitch who was allowed to be arranged by the Roman family. You flattered Arturi. You all make me feel sick by trying to please him. Get out." Lily stared at him and interrupted him coldly. His cheek muscles twitched, and suddenly he opened the carriage door without looking back, jumped out like a flexible leopard, and soon disappeared. Trace. He left again. Such an unreliable knight, Lily knew that he might betray the temple at any time and follow Anna. Unfortunately, she didn't know whether the original owner's wish included the desire to snatch Brian back from Anna's hands, which led to this. Now it was obvious that Lily was very disgusted with Brian, but she could not drive him away easily. Among the two targets that the original owner cared about, Anna had been acquired by Achari. Now she only had Brian left. Even if this person was unreliable, she would still keep him without a clue. When the carriage returned to the Holy See, Lily returned to her room. When she was about to change out of her robe, she touched the flower in her hair. Unavoidably, she thought of the person who sent the flower again, so she took the flower off. Before I had time to put it down, a gentle voice sounded outside the door. "Miss Roman, I have something to tell you, is that okay?" Outside the door, Bishop Andrew, who was wearing a red archbishop's robe and had gray hair, lowered his head, holding a holy book of light, not knowing what he was thinking. When Lily opened the door and came out, the elderly archbishop quickly raised his head, with a kind smile on his face. "Good afternoon, Miss Roman, may the goddess of light bless you. I have something to say to you, is that okay?" After seeing clearly who the archbishop was, Lily nodded. Andrew had served as the most central bishop of the Temple of Light in the Noer Empire for many years. He was not born into a distinguished family and was not a son of a powerful man. He had been a candidate priest in a small church on the border of Noer and climbed up to where he is today. When the previous pope was still alive, He has been one of the bishops in the Temple of Light in the Noer Empire. He has a gentle and kind personality, and has helped many people. He is a loyal believer of the Goddess of Light. He has a high reputation in the Noer capital. In fact, he is also one of the most popular candidates for the future successor of the Pope during the Light Festival, which is said to happen every 10 years. Such a big shot, no matter how kind he is, in fact he has to be busy with a lot of things in the Temple of Light. In the past, candidate saints like the original owner could not talk to him much. Occasionally, when praying devoutly in the morning and evening, the Archbishop may not always be free, but now he took the initiative to find her, and the original owner was not very familiar with him. Lily didn't know how he had something to say to her. Although she was surprised, she still kept the door open. He opened it and invited the highly respected Archbishop in. "The flowers are beautiful, Miss Roman." When Andrew came in, he first took a look at the flower in Lily's hand, which had lost some water but still maintained a beautiful color, and praised it. Lily put on the shy and nervous smile of the original owner, and whispered her thanks. "My child, don't be nervous." Andrew stretched out his hand to make a soothing gesture, and the smile on his face became a little gentler. "I heard from Alan that you were picked up by Mr. Leon, the steward of Archdukery today. Did you have fun?" He mentioned Arturi directly in this way. If Lily still doesn't understand the reason why the Archbishop is here, then her life will be in vain. Although she had guessed this at first, when she actually heard Andrew's question, she calmed down and nodded. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 976. My child, Grand Ducatory is a great man. His ancestors have made outstanding contributions to the stability of Noer. It will be of great benefit to you to associate with him. A meaningful expression appeared on Andrew's face. Smiling, when he saw Lily nodding, the look in his eyes became much softer. "I will tell you some important things next. Do you know the reason why Grand Ducatory entered the imperial capital this time?" Lily naturally knew the reason why Aturi entered the imperial capital. On the carriage today, Aturi had already told him that he was summoned to Noer by His Majesty the Emperor. At this moment, Archbishop Andrew came specifically to tell her about this matter, and Lily suddenly began to make calculations in her mind. Although Andrew is currently a highly respected archbishop with a high reputation in the temple, no matter how good his reputation is, it does not mean that he is an ordinary old man with a pure heart and no scheming or strategies. To achieve the position of archbishop in the temple, in addition to his kindness and prestige needing to be recognized and praised by people, strength and scheming are also essential. Otherwise, there are more than tens of millions of light believers in the entire lowland continent. In the human world of lowland continent, temples are distributed all over the place. Every few years, the temples will add a large number of candidate priests. The number of priests is countless. Andrew can start from one. A priest with no backstage background can climb up the ladder smoothly step by step and become an archbishop. Now he can be regarded as occupying a place in the temple. He is not an ordinary person. Even though the words he asked now were full of mystery, he seemed to be asking Lily, asking her if she knew the reason why Arturi entered the imperial capital. In fact, it has other meanings. At first glance, his words sounded like they were extremely kind, just to use such words to draw closer to Lily so that she would not be so nervous, but after listening carefully, Lily found that he was testing herself. He asked this question because he wanted to wait for his answer. If she said that she didn't know how Arturi entered the imperial capital, and what the reason was for entering the imperial capital, then he can tell that the relationship between him and Aturi will not be as close as he imagined. If the archbishop comes to you on his own initiative, his purpose cannot be because he has taken a fancy to Lily. In fact, although the original owner was born in the Roman family, the patriarch of the Roman family was promoted to earl because of the original owner. But in fact, in addition to the Roman family, Apart from his reputation, this earl was of little use. As an archbishop, Andrew would not take an earl seriously. He must have thought of cooperating with Itchery through Lily. If the relationship between Lily and Itchery has reached a certain level of intimacy, then Lily is worthy of his win over. And if the relationship between Lily and Itchery is not as close as the archbishop imagined, he will definitely win over him. Say a few words casually and try to use Lily to achieve the purpose of meeting Itchery. And there is a certain difference between the two, if he wants to win over Lily. Then the archbishop must pay something to represent his sincerity, and if he just uses Lily, then he doesn't have to pay any sincerity. Lily thought about these causes and consequences very clearly in her mind. She had a shy and ignorant look on her face. After Andrew finished speaking, he stared at her with a smile. She pretended to be a little embarrassed. Look. She wasn't ready to tell Andrew everything Uri said. He wanted to test herself, and Lily also wanted to see his sincerity, so she was silent for a while. Cheeks flushed. It was as if he was too nervous to speak. Don't be nervous, my child. The goddess of light is above. I just want to tell you something useful. Seeing Lily like this, Andrew's wrinkled eyes smiled like two crescent moons. Kind and affectionate, Lily seemed to be soothed by his gentle words. Gradually she calmed down and nodded. I heard that Sir Itchery entered the Empire because of the summons of His Majesty the Emperor. Is that true, Your Excellency the Archbishop? As soon as she finished speaking, although Andrew's expression did not change, the smile in his eyes was obviously a little deeper. His expression became gentler, and every wrinkle on his face was full of intimacy and peace. I didn't expect that Grand Duke Itchery would really look at you differently. You only dated him twice, and he was even willing to tell you such a thing. Andrew secretly felt in his heart when he heard that Lily did know the truth about Itchery's entry into the imperial capital. He breathed a sigh of relief. This Grand Duke was not enthusiastic about women in the past. He had already reached the age where he could marry and have children. According to his status, he could marry even the royal princess of Noer, but he seemed not to be interested in any of this. Unexpectedly, when he entered the imperial capital this time, he met with this young lady from the Roman family, and made 2 appointments in a row. Uri's character is not enthusiastic, but he can tell Lily certain things, which proves that he really has a special regard for this girl. Even if the status of the Roman family is too low in the future, Lily may not be able to leave the temple and marry into the Itchery family. But if she becomes Itchery's favorite mistress, the result will be the same. Seeing Lily lowering her head shyly because of what he said, Andrew began to seriously look at this candidate saint who he had never seen seriously before. There are more than a dozen candidate saints in the temple, and each of them is an excellent body of light. All of these girls are as charming as young buds, and the original owner used to be the most contented one among these saints. Although she was born into a noble family, I don't know if it was because she entered the Temple of Light too early. Her belief in the goddess of light was extremely deep. Unfortunately, the Roman family background was too low. In the past, she didn't seem to care much about the affairs of the temple. Instead, she was single-minded. She is immersed in studying the holy scriptures of light, so she is not conspicuous in the temple, and she has no useful background. In fact, if it were not for Uri's date with her, this candidate saint would not be noticeable. And after several archbishops have chosen saints they want to recommend and support, there is no hope for her to win the title of saint. But she has excellent luck. Her beautiful and pure appearance can charm men like Itchery who are not close to women. This has almost become a useful weapon for her. Also worthy of Andrew's attention. You know that Grand Duke Itchery was summoned to the imperial capital by His Majesty the Emperor. Then, my child, do you know the reason why His Majesty the Emperor summoned Grand Duke Itchery to the capital? Andrew wanted to test some more. His gentle eyes with a smile were staring closely at Lily. Don't be nervous, because your attitude is related to what I want to say to you next. Tell me seriously. Has the Grand Duke told you the reason? Lily seemed to be frightened by his nervous expression, and nodded hesitantly. He said. When Lily said this, she paused. Although Andrew was still calm, the hands holding the Holy Book of Light suddenly became a little tight. He didn't completely believe Lily's previous words. Still wanting to test more, Lily felt the tense emotions all over his body. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, but he quickly pursed them again. Master Achari said that this time he goes to Beijing, he will return to Achari's territory in a month, because, Andrew stopped because of Lily's speech. With a nervous and somewhat complicated look on his face. Lily saw the expression on his face clearly, and then continued, because Lord Achari said that His Majesty the Emperor invited him to the imperial capital in order to invite him to participate in the upcoming Festival of Light. As soon as he said these words, the look in Andrew's eyes seemed to relax all of a sudden, as if a secret that everyone had concealed for a long time was finally revealed to the world one day. He felt a little relaxed, but also felt a little complicated and nervous. His body immediately relaxed. He leaned his back against the chair. Take a long breath. The eyes that had held a gentle smile before were now closed as if they felt a little tired. My child, you are indeed a girl who is loved by the goddess of light. Grand Duke Achari really looks at you differently. Yes, what I want to say to you today is related to the Light Festival, because it is going to be ahead of schedule. It was originally supposed to be held half a year later, but it was held ahead of schedule. Grand Duke Achari was invited to the imperial capital by His Majesty the Emperor to participate in the Festival of Light originally. Andrew was a little suspicious of Lily saying that Achari was summoned to the capital by the Emperor. What he said was just random talk. At this time, after Lily told this secret that not many people knew, it was obvious that there was no doubt in his heart. You know that this time of the Light Festival, in addition to selecting the saint in advance, besides, there are other reasons, you know. Are you going to elect a pope? Lily asked. When Andrew heard this, he was stunned for a moment, and then smiled bitterly. The Grand Duke can even tell you such a thing? He looked at Lily up and down. After a few glances, his expression gradually became serious. Yes, this time the Light Festival will not only select a saint, but also a candidate pope. Selecting a saint is not the highlight of this Light Festival. Since the last pope and the saint in the temple had to deal with the darkness, confronting the power, and returning to the embrace of the goddess of light, there has never been an appearance of the pope. This is not a happy thing for the temple. After Andrew finished speaking, he sighed, we believers do not understand the will of the goddess of light, but the reason why the Light Festival is advanced this time is because we got the news that the people in the Dark Temple are said to have obtained the oracles of the Dark Goddess. The seeds representing the Dark Goddess have entered the continent of Lowland. As early as half a year ago, several archbishops and I obtained the Goddess Oracle from the statue of the Goddess of Light. We must stop the Dark Goddess before she awakens, otherwise once the people of the Dark Temple have found their saint, then one day, darkness will permeate the entire earth. The Dark Goddess will reawaken from the saint. The people of Lowland continent will become the servants of the Dark Goddess, and the Temple of Light will also no longer exists. To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 977. At this moment, Andrew got satisfactory news from Lily, and he did not keep it secret anymore. He happily told a lot of news that Lily did not know before. At the critical moment of the temple's survival, we must have a leader to lead us to eliminate the saint and drive these followers of the Dark Goddess out of this continent. Following Andrew's words, Lily's face seemed a little surprised and a little scared, but in her heart she began to recall in detail the news she got from Andrew this time, and combine the news with the plot. You also know the situation in the temple now. The scepter of light disappeared with the return of His Majesty the Pope many years ago and is still missing. If the scepter is still there, the right person will naturally be chosen according to the oracle. That is our leader, but because the scepter disappeared, although we have tried our best to look for it, we have never received any news about the scepter. Now we are reselecting the candidates for the Pope. The archbishops in the temple, including me, have a total of 9 people. Even if it is just a candidate pope, everyone knows that as long as this candidate does not appear as a real pope, he will become a regular one sooner or later. Perhaps he got to the point. Excitement slowly began to appear in Andrew's eyes, and his originally pale face turned red with excitement. I will dedicate my whole life to the goddess of light, and I am eager to do my best for the temple. After he finished speaking, he put the holy book in his hand on the table, and his body that had been leaning on the back of the chair suddenly straightened up. Miss Roman, the competition for Pope candidates is no less than the competition for saints, so are you willing to cooperate with me? Can we work together for the position of Pope and Saint? I will swear that if I get you I will do my best to help you, after I become the candidate Pope. I will be grateful to you, love you, and take care of you. The goddess of light is above. I will never hurt you in this life. I will share my glory with you. I will do my best. I can protect and help you, Miss Roman, are you willing? Andrew's expression gradually became serious and serious from the excitement at the beginning, and his sharp eyes fell on Lily. As far as I know, the Roman family also has great hopes for you. The Roman family became the Earl because you have a body of light. If you lose the election, the glory you have brought to the family will naturally be gone. Your father, you may not be able to keep your position as Earl. The Roman family may return to your hometown. You will no longer have the title of candidate saint, and you may even become an ordinary nun in the temple. In order to maintain the power of the family, maybe your father will treat you as a commodity and give it to the powerful to preserve his status. My child, are you willing to imagine such a sad scene? There was a look of pity and sympathy on his face. If you are willing to cooperate with me, I will try my best to recommend you to become a saint. As long as I can become the Pope, my child, only you can sit on the throne of saint. Andrew's words were seductive and threatening, and what he said made sense. And very realistic. The eloquent words seemed to hit the most fearful part of Lily's heart, causing her face to turn pale in an instant. She seemed to be frightened and confused, and she just muttered to herself in a panic. Then what should I do? What should I do? Mr. Archbishop? What should I do? I don't have any ability to cooperate with you. Seeing that he had successfully frightened the girl, Andrew breathed a sigh of relief involuntarily. You have ability, and Grand Ducatory is your greatest ability, he finished. His tone became a little brisk. The Grand Duke obviously wants to help you, but although the Grand Duke is strong, if he really likes you, even if he has the ability to promote you to the position of a saint, but my child, he never belongs to nowhere and does not belong to the temple. As he said, he will leave here one day. Then after he leaves, you need someone to take care of you in the temple. If you can help do me a small favor, so that I can meet with the Grand Duke and talk to him about things that are beneficial to each other. I will take care of you for him, and he is just helping me with a little effort. It is a mutually beneficial thing for everyone, so why not, why not? But Grand Ducatory has never said that he likes me. Lily was calm in her heart, but pretended to be a little panicked. Andrew interrupted her before she could finish speaking. Believe me, the Grand Ducatory is different to you. You are so fresh and charming. Even an old man like me who has dedicated his life to the goddess of light can't help but be happy to get close to you. The Grand Duke is special to you. I like it, otherwise he wouldn't ask you out twice in a row. After he finished speaking, he paused for a while, and a mysterious smile appeared on his face. Maybe there is one thing you don't know. Even when the Grand Duke was a boy, he had very little regard for the opposite sex. They have never been close to each other. Some people in the Noer Empire once suspected that the Grand Duke was restrained by the Creator God because he was too outstanding. They said that he might have been taken away by the Lord God when he was born. He didn't like it. He gets along with girls and does not get close to anyone of the opposite sex. The Grand Duke is now in his prime, but he is still single. Miss Roman, you are the first woman he has dated, and he has dated you twice, twice. He repeated the word twice emphatically, showing his excitement. And the Grand Duke is not a talkative person, but he is willing to share secrets with you. What does this mean? He likes you, he loves you, you believe me, as long as you promise to let the Grand Duke meet with me, there will be no relationship between us. It will be very pleasant to cooperate with you. When Lily heard this, a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Today she lost an important person like Anna, and also lost an opportunity to make the eldest prince grateful to her. She originally thought that she would have to find a new relationship if she wanted to compete for the position of saint. Unexpectedly, the road is boundless, and just lost a eldest prince, and now Archbishop Andrew took the initiative to come to the door. This is good. She also needs to get close to Ichiri. She wants to contact Anna again, and wants to see the plot of the mission and make a decision while contacting her. Andrew wants to use her to cooperate with Ichiri. In fact, she was also worried about how she would get close to Arturi, and she also needed the Archbishop's help. As for Andrew's words that Arturi liked her and loved her, Lily didn't take it to heart at all. Arturi's cold and ancient well-like blue eyes appeared in her mind. There seemed to be no emotion in those eyes. No matter how well a man like this pretends to be on the surface, in fact he is a piece of stone that can never be melted. Bing, he cannot become passionate for any woman easily, and he will not fall in love with anyone easily. But it was not her who said she liked herself. Even if Andrew found that he had guessed wrong in the end, he was the one who said with such certainty that Arturi liked her. She did not deceive him. The Archbishop's reputation also allowed him to do so. Unless it was because of the broken promise, even if the cooperation between him and Arturi failed, his pride and dignified status would not cause him to turn his anger on himself and thus be detrimental to himself. She agreed to such a cooperation that was beneficial and harmless to her. Archbishop Andrew left with a gentle smile on his face. Before leaving, he kept the holy book of light he brought. This holy book had a gold border symbolizing Archbishop Andrew's special identity. The reason why Andrew stayed after downloading this holy book, I wanted to lend her the reputation of my archbishop, so that her status in the temple would be higher, and let people know that she was not the previous candidate saint who had no backing in the temple. The most important thing is that he also wants to use this thing to remind others that he has cooperated with Lily, so that other archbishops will retreat in the face of difficulties. At the same time, this holy book can be regarded as one of the evidences that witnessed the cooperation between the two. He left this to show his sincerity. Before leaving, the Archbishop told Lily that Arturi would attend a grand party held by His Majesty the Emperor in the castle outside the palace 3 days later, which would last for a whole day. Originally, not many people were invited to this party. Several archbishops from the temple were also invited. Count Roman's family may also go. Andrew is also planning to take Lily with him, and then the next step of their cooperation will be carried out. Plan: he would like to ask Lily to introduce Ichiri for him, and Lily agreed. Lily touched the holy book of light in her hand. The holy book was made of unknown animal fur. It felt much better than the holy book owned by the original owner. This holy book was quite heavy, making it difficult for her to hold it up. The golden horns inlaid at the 4 corners of the holy book shone with dazzling luster, and a faint power of light emanated from the book, slowly strengthening Lily's spiritual power. Lily couldn't help but think of the book with strange characters that she saw in Ichiri's carriage today. The cover of that book was also made of strange leather, but she didn't know what kind of leather it was, and it felt slightly rough. There are still some instinctive feelings about that book that cannot be forgotten, but now holding Archbishop Andrew's Holy Scripture of Light, Lily once again confirmed that Achari's statement that it was the great prophecy curse was a joke, because even the Holy Scripture itself appeared the power of light. If there was really something wrong with that book, it was impossible for her to touch it with her own hands and not feel it at all. Brian didn't come back to the temple that day. No one knew where he went. He didn't even come to participate in the evening prayers in the temple. Brian had joined the temple for many years and had been with the original owner. He had been in the Temple of Light since he was a child. The belief in the goddess of light is very strong in the minds of people who grew up in middle school. He has never missed any prayer before, but now he is absent. This should be the beginning of his betrayal of the temple for Anna in the plot. To be continued. Canon Fodder's Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 978. It's a pity that this time the plot only has a beginning and no ending, so Lily hasn't thought about what to do with Brian yet. He was obviously fascinated by Anna. For such a person, Lily didn't want to put in the effort to bring him back. Even if the original owner really liked him, she decided to sit on the sidelines. If the plot progressed to the later stage, she would get more clues. If she finds that Brian is not helpful to her mission, if he stops provoking her, Lily will do whatever he wants, but if he dares to provoke her again, and he is not helpful to the plot, then she just think of a way to kill him. And if it is discovered later that the original owner's wish is to win Brian from Anna, when she becomes stronger, she will keep Brian close to her, which can be regarded as indirectly completing the task. During the early morning prayer the next morning, Lily didn't talk to Brian much. Her abnormal behavior made Brian look at her several times. The time for the ball that Archbishop Andrew said His Majesty was going to hold in honor of Archduke Arturi came soon. During this period, Achari did not send anyone to give her gifts or ask her out again. Although Lily wanted to inquire about Anna, she thought that sooner or later she would see Achari again at the ball, so she did not. Don't be anxious or panicked. The day before the ball started, the Roman family had sent people to the temple to pick her up and bring her back to the family to dress up. Apparently, this time the Roman family also made an exception and got His Majesty's permission because of Lily's date with Arturi. Participate in this high society dance. However, Lily had already promised Archbishop Andrew that she would attend the party as his female companion, so she explained the situation to the Roman family, and Earl Roman sent jewelry in advance. No one was sent over again. Lily came over in the carriage of Archbishop Andrew of the temple, and Brian sat outside the carriage with Archbishop Andrew's guardian knight. In the car, Archbishop Andrew looked at Lily's simple dress today. She did not wear the complicated dress sent by the Roman family. Instead, she only wore a fitted white dress, showing her graceful posture. She didn't wear any dazzling jewelry, but her long, thick, curly hair was spread behind her. There was only a simple aquamarine forehead ornament on her forehead, and the gemstone reflected its dazzling luster under the light. She was dressed fresh and refreshing, although it was too simple, but it was precisely because of the simple clothing and jewelry that it brought out Lily's own temperament and the beautiful appearance of the original owner. Therefore, although Andrew was a little dissatisfied with Lily's dressing up so simply, but when he saw her, he didn't comment on her dress. The carriage stopped in front of the manor where the party was held tonight. The guard on duty stepped forward to check Archbishop Andrew's identity and quickly let him go. Night has fallen and the dance has not started yet. The garden in front of the castle is already filled with lights and there are many decorative moonstones hanging around. The stone reflects the light, making this ancient castle brightly lit. This ball was mainly organized by the Emperor for Achari. As the protagonist this time, Grand Duke Achari sat beside the Emperor, and he was surrounded by the crowd along with several princes. But the Grand Duke's tall figure, even if he was surrounded by the crowd, still stood out from the crowd. When Lily took Andrew's arm and entered the middle of the ball, Her eyes immediately fell on him. As if he felt someone was watching him, the Grand Duke turned his head very keenly. His originally lazy and cold expression changed after seeing Lily. He quickly showed a smile and without turning his head, he approached the Emperor sitting beside him and whispered something. "Because it's too far away." Lily couldn't hear his voice at all, but his eyes kept falling on her. The hair on her back was creepy. Archbishop Andrew soon discovered this, and the smile on his face deepened a bit. He took Lily and walked over here. Along the way, he greeted the nobles who came forward and wanted to talk to him. As he walked to today next to some of the ball's brightest stars. As she got closer, Lily saw that Art Uri was not wearing a serious and elegant white shirt today like the previous two meetings. He was wearing an olive green hunting suit today, and his light blonde hair was completely swept away by him. He combed his back, revealing his plump heavenly figure. Compared with his previous aristocratic, cold, and distant look, the outfit he wore today showed his handsome and heroic side. As Archbishop Andrew approached Lily, he stood up. This uniform perfectly showed his long legs and slender waist. He was wearing a pair of leather boots, walked towards Lily, and stretched out a hand. "Madam, you look very charming tonight." His palms were facing up, and his fingers were slender and strong. Under the bright light, you could vaguely see the thin calluses between his fingers caused by holding something for many years. Lily smiled at him and thanked him, and put her fingers on his palm. Achuri smiled. Leng Hui suddenly stopped his hand. His expression was reserved and a bit careless, but his movements were as fast as a cheetah. Lily, she felt like she was being targeted by him, and she instinctively wanted to pull her hand back, but a few fingers were caught by him. He lowered his head and kissed the back of her hand gently. Achuri didn't like people getting too close to him. Now he took the initiative to kiss Lily's hand. This move made everyone around him look a little surprised. When his lips left the back of Lily's hand, he did not let go of Lily's hand. Instead, he grabbed Lily's hand. Before Lily could react, he stuffed her arm into his bent arm and held it. The palm holding her hand did not let go, making it impossible for Lily to struggle away. This overbearing action seemed to be declaring sovereignty, and it immediately left Lily speechless. Not only did she fail to react, but Archbishop Andrew on the side was also dumbfounded. Art Uri's expression was not strange. He seemed to think that it was natural to do so. Although it was not unusual for a lady to enter the castle together with two male companions on her arms. Most of the noble ladies entered the castle with their husbands and sons on their arms. However, due to the unique identities of the Archbishop and the Archduchessry, Lily suddenly became the focus of the audience, and many people's envious eyes fell on her. Archbishop Andrew was silent for a moment, then smiled gently, winked at Lily, and took the initiative to reach out and let Lily go. "It's an honor to bring you your lady companion." Sure enough, a young and beautiful girl is always suitable for a handsome gentleman. He complimented the two of them without any trace, and Brian, who parked the carriage and came in, said this. After hearing this, Brian's eyes quickly flashed with a haze, and he quickly lowered his head again. Taking advantage of Archbishop Andrew's greetings with the Emperor, Art Uri took Lily out of the crowd and found a corner to sit down. "Long time no see, madam. It seems like you are doing well these days." A group of people in the distance saw the two hiding in the corner, looking like they wanted to come over but didn't dare. They just turned around and stared at the two from time to time. "Thank you for your concern, sir. Why didn't you see Mr. Leon today?" Lily wanted to inquire about Anna's whereabouts, but she didn't know how to ask Achuri to bring it up on his own initiative. She didn't want Achuri to see her. As for Anna's special purpose, so as not to cause trouble in the future, she was trying to find an excuse to sidetrack her, but as soon as she said this, Art Uri's slender eyebrows suddenly raised. "What? Shouldn't the lady express her longing for me first and then ask my butler?" His voice was a little softer, with a smile in his tone. But these words with a smile not only did not make people feel warm, but instead made people feel chills on the back for no reason. The hair on Lily's back stood up. She shook her head and was pushed into the sofa in the corner by Uri. Her back hit the soft back of the sofa, and before she could scream, Uri had already held the armrests on both sides of the sofa with both hands, trapping Lily between herself and the sofa. His tall and slender body bent down, using his body to block the lights in the castle and the many eyes staring at Lily. His beautiful and delicate face was very close to Lily, and a few strands of hair hung down on his face, making him the deep facial features cast shadows, making his eyes look like bottomless pools, deep and dark. Perhaps it was because he was carrying a light, but his eyes that used to look blue now turned dark blue. When he was staring at him, it gave people a great sense of oppression. What I brought tonight is not me. Mr. Butler, maybe I think it's not him you want to see, but someone else, right? The tip of Lily's nose was filled with his breath. He was so close, and it was as if she could feel the temperature of his body without reaching out. Her whole body was surrounded by his breath, which was like fresh lemon on Uri's body. The breath seemed to be everywhere, and every breath seemed to be tainted with his scent from the inside out. When he heard him say this, his heart stopped for 2 beats, and then started beating crazily. There was a coldness in Tuli's eyes that seemed to understand everything. Just as she was about to shake her head and deny it, Andrew's voice rang out from behind them. I have always admired the master's charm. Now that I have met him, my child, aren't you going to introduce me to the master? There was a look of displeasure in Uri's eyes at being disturbed. He turned his head with a slight expression on his face. The pressure caused by him dissipated a lot as he turned his head. Lily breathed a sigh of relief and was about to sit down. He straightened his body, but he suddenly turned his head again. Lily didn't expect him to turn his head like this. When she reacted and fell back on the chair quickly, his lips were already like a brush, gently moving from her forehead moved away. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 979. This behavior seemed to everyone as if the two of them had been engaging in some intimate action before, and Andrew had a somewhat embarrassed but forced calm smile on his face. Sir, this is Archbishop Andrew in the Temple of Light. He has a high reputation in the temple. The Archbishop has always been very interested in the glorious history of the Uri family. Maybe you have something you can talk about, Lily pretended. Not seeing Andrew's embarrassed face that seemed to have interrupted the good things between her and Uri, she forced herself to calm down and leaned on the chair to finish her words. Uri stared at her. Then are you interested in the glorious history of the Uri family? Maybe I can tell you a little more. He obviously had no interest in Andrew, and he didn't really want to chat with Andrew. Although the smile on Andrew's face did not change, there was an anxious look in his eyes. He glanced at Lily subconsciously. Perhaps I can also tell you more about Miss Roman. As soon as he finished speaking, Uri glanced at Lily, and seeing Lily staring at him with a calm face, the corners of his mouth suddenly curled up. Get up, stand up straight, reach out and touch Lily's face. Okay, if you are willing. His hand fell along Lily's face to her neck, and finally moved to her arms, pulled her up, and put his face to her ear. Ms, you brought me someone, then I will also bring you someone. There is a lounge next to the stables behind the castle, you can go there and have a look. I wish you a happy day. As soon as he finished speaking, he stretched out his hand to release Lily, who had not yet reacted, and waved to her. Lily glanced at him. He had turned to chat with Andrew at this moment. Although she was still a little confused, she thought that since she met Uri, he had told her several things. Although he hadn't discovered what his purpose was, he had not deceived himself, so he hesitated and raised his skirt. After asking the ball servant for the direction of the stable, he walked towards the stable. The stables of the castle were far away from the liveliest dance here. The more she walked in that direction, the fewer people there were. The frolic and noise behind her seemed to be thrown away at once, and the night wind blew through the forest and sounded rustling as the sound came. The stars in the sky overhead twinkled, and lilies walked under the shade of the trees. Soon I saw the stables not far away, where there were several gatekeeper slaves leaning on the wooden fence next to the stables, looking drowsy. There was a wooden shed next to the stable, with several figures sitting sparsely inside. Through the flowers, Lily saw Archbishop Andrew's knight sitting there, and several plump female slaves seemed to want to sit close. But he didn't dare, staring at the handsome knight with a serious face from a distance, but Brian was not in the middle. She took in the scene not far away and didn't see the surprise that Achari said. She was frowning, wondering if Achari had deliberately found something to get her out of the way. When she opened it, a faint sound of inhalation reached her ears. Lily's whole body tensed up. The sound seemed familiar, so she took off her shoes. Avoid stepping on the cobblestones with your heels later. Make a sound. She walked towards the source of the sound, and the gasping sound gradually became louder. On both sides of the road were rows of green plants trimmed into umbrella shapes. She squatted down and got in. And put away her dress, turned around and pushed aside a small leaf. In the birch forest behind this row of green plants, Brian, wearing knight armor, was lying on a big tree. The suppressed and painful inhalation just now came from his mouth. When there are people less than 7 or 8 meters away, Brian is actually still playing with people outside at this moment. Lily had seen him at the dance before. Maybe he took the opportunity to leave while she was talking to Arthurai. Brian actually appeared here and seemed to be having a tryst with a woman. Thinking of Anna, whom he liked, and then thinking of Lily immediately understood the surprise that Arthurai had mentioned before. The woman in front of her was Anna. The two people were probably at a heated stage just now. Lily was cautious when she hid in the bushes. The two people were making firewood and did not notice her arrival. Now that the identities of the two people were confirmed, it stands to reason that she said that Lily should leave, but after Brian and Anna had a passionate kiss, he actually shouted in pain, and then softly cried out in pain. "Little wild cat, you actually bite." He stepped back a little, and the almost half-naked Anna, who was hidden behind the tree by his tall figure, was naturally exposed. Her clothes had been pushed up by Brian, and the dress that could only be used to cover it was revealed. The small leather skirt covering her hips was pushed up to her waist, revealing her two fair, slender, and powerful thighs. The grass between her legs was luxuriant. The moonlight shining through the dense bushes revealed her fair and graceful figure. Enchanting and eye-catching. Anna's long hair was spread over her chest, covering most of her round and plump breasts. She bit her fingers in her lips, looked at Brian and smiled. Want it? Brian naturally wanted it at this moment. His originally handsome face already looked a little ferocious, and the veins on his forehead were sprouting. He reached out to take off his armor and threw it to where Lily was hiding. In the bushes, he took off his pants. He wanted to pounce on Anna, but Anna bent one leg, and her delicate little feet touched Brian's lower body and started rubbing. "It's not okay to just want it like this. I'm not ready yet. Now, you come and serve me. If you are satisfied with the service, I can give it to you. If you are not satisfied, then you can leave." Her voice was charming, but his expression revealed a bit of a sarcastic smile. The fusion of these two completely different expressions almost drove Brian crazy. He was on the verge of making a move at the moment. Hearing Anna's words, he was about to ready to use force. Anna sneered and kicked him at the most vulnerable part of his body. He let out a cry of pain, his voice curled up like a shrimp. Anna seemed to have lost interest and put her as the clothes were pulled down. Brian endured the pain and grabbed her thigh. "Who doesn't have to wait on you? Is it Arthurai?" There was a bit of irritation in his tone, and Anna laughed twice more. "He is indeed my target. But what does that have to do with you? Are you jealous of him?" Is it because of me or because you protect that candidate little saint? After Anna said it, her charming voice was so cold that it penetrated the human body, but soon Brian seemed to be unable to control himself anymore. He pulled Anna's legs up, and his lips suddenly he pressed it between her thighs, and Anna let out a quick yet comfortable gasp. Lily sat in the bushes and saw Brian's face when he abandoned his knightly dignity and was captured by the police, and began to think about the meaning of Anna's words. Anna bluntly said that Achuri was her target. Ever since Lily saw the meeting between Anna and Achuri for the first time, she knew that Anna had a purpose for Achuri. She was different from ordinary female slaves. She was brave. She seems to be very big, and her expressions of fear, pity, helplessness, and coquettishness all seem to be faked by her. She is using the eldest prince to achieve her goals. She does not seem to be possessing the dragon and the phoenix. What Anna said, Lily confirmed this. As for why she took Arturi as her target, Lily didn't want to care. She remembered the scene when Anna talked about Brian's candidate little saint before. The so-called candidate little saint refers to, of course, it was Lily. Anna probably didn't know her originally, but when Anna mentioned herself, there was a hint of murderous intent in her words. Lily was very close to the two of them, and she could clearly see the look in Anna's eyes. The coldness of that moment. The original owner had no enmity with her, and she seemed to have no hatred towards the original owner. It seemed that she just wanted to kill her. Lily had been wondering whether her mission was related to Brian or Anna, until at this moment, she overheard Anna's words, and she already felt that she might have guessed correctly this time. Anna quickly lost her armor under Brian's lips and tongue. Brian stood up, picked Anna up and pressed her back against the tree, with her legs wrapped around his waist. Anna spoke with restraint and urgency. He groaned, and a bloody smell spread in the air, but it quickly dissipated. The two were dating in the birch forest, surrounded by people. The two were lingering together as if no one was around. Anna's back might have been a little sore from being rubbed by the trees. She pushed Brian and the two rolled to the ground. On the grass, his body was very close to Lily, and Lily could reach out and catch the two of them. "Leave Arturi's side," Brian shouted this out of passion. Anna sneered twice, stretched out her hand and hooked his neck. No, her words made Brian even crazier. While panting and groaning, Anna's soft and breathy voice sounded. "Find an opportunity to kill that saint and follow me." Brian's body stiffened, with a struggling and surprised look on his face. But soon, as Anna lifted her legs and hooked his waist, he seemed to have lost his mind and was once again immersed in the pleasure brought by her body. "Enjoy it? Why did you kill Lily?" After the two of them had finished having fun, Brian was not in a hurry to get out of Anna's body. Instead, he held Anna's face seriously and asked her again. Anna's cheeks were flushed and her long hair was spread all over the floor. She was obviously still in the afterglow of passion. Her fair and tender body was twitching slightly. When she heard Brian's words, she sneered and let Brian's hands on her body. As he wandered away, his eyes quickly regained clarity and coldness. "It's just because between me and her, we can't both live." After she finished speaking, her body moved badly, and Brian's breath quickly became unsteady again. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 980. Lily got enough information from this good show. She sat in the bushes and listened to the two people outside, except for the collision of sex, and the occasional sparse conversation. Until the dance was coming to an end, there were servants of the nobles. When they came over to prepare the carriage to leave, the two reluctantly separated. Brian stood up and put on his clothes, while Anna lay on the ground with her legs spread wide, panting and narrowing her eyes slightly. I will consider what you say. Brian saw the bright red color between her legs, and his sharp eyes gradually softened. He said as if to ensure that Archbishop Andrew's bodyguard was not far away. The knight's voice called Brian. He put his armor on his body, jumped up like an eagle, pushed aside the bushes and rushed out. His foot happened to step on the hem of Lily's white skirt. If her legs hadn't been pulled back slightly, he might have stepped on her. Anna at the back had not left yet, and Lily couldn't make too much noise. She looked at half a footprint left on her skirt. Soon Brian disappeared, and the lingering trace of the two people's previous love was in the air. There was a strange smell left after the recovery. Anna, who was lying half naked on the ground, opened her thighs indifferently. She stared at the top of her head with her eyes open. After a long while, she sat up lazily and put her hands down. Pulling her clothes down, she picked off 2 leaves and stepped on her feet, smoothing the place where she had been lying on the ground before. Then she put the leaves away, and finally stepped on the leaves that Brian had left behind very carefully. The footprints also left a shoe print near the hem of Lily's skirt where she was stepped on, and then left. Wait until she has gone far. It took Lily a while before she stood up. She walked far along the bushes before emerging from the bushes. The private affair between Brian and Anna had been going on for a long time, and now the dance was coming to an end. Lily picked up the leaves and grass debris on her body, and straightened her clothes. She removed the soil from the soles of her feet. Rubbing against the flower bed aside, there was nothing but overlapping footprints between the hems of her skirts. She could barely tell that Lee had been in the bushes before. When Count Roman and his wife came to the ball, they were allowed to come in very late. Lily left the place before arriving, so the two couples did not see her. The party was about to end, but the two couples were still reluctant to leave, even if many people here are not close to these two nouveau riche couples. The two of them were still enjoying themselves in the middle of the dance. When she saw Lily coming in, Ms. Roman's eyes lit up and she came forward. "What's going on? Where have you been? My dear, you should introduce Ducatchery to us. Look. Just because you left, everything is messed up." The two couples were originally just viscounts. Their status is really too low. If they hadn't been promoted to count by His Majesty because of the original owner, they might not be able to stay here at all. The two couples urgently need something to prove their existence. They are eager to integrate into the real upper-class society. They are eager to be accepted by the aristocratic family. Unfortunately, no one here pays attention to them at all. This trip was because Lily and Achuri had dated before. As Achuri was the only female parent who had dated in the imperial capital this time. The two of them were also invited to the dance, but unfortunately Lily was not there. No one paid attention to them. The two failed to please Arturi, and they were fascinated by all the splendor. At this time, the party was about to end, and the two were reluctant to leave, so they vented their grievances on Lily. Obviously blaming her. Lily was still thinking about Anna at this moment. Anna was obviously not like an ordinary slave girl. She was cautious and very smart. She knew how to enjoy the pleasure of the body and how to use her body to make a man surrender. Brian obviously became deeply infatuated with her after having sex with her twice. She was full of malice towards him. This malice was not some kind of hatred, but simply did not want her to live. She remembered Anna's words that only one of them could survive, which sounded like a lot of mystery. Anna's way of handling the place when she left was very old-fashioned. She knew how to cover up her traces, and she subconsciously stepped on Brian's footsteps every step she took. Lily checked the footprints on her skirt, and the prints were exactly the same. His footprints were perfectly hidden in Brian's footprints. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he probably wouldn't have been able to tell that two people had gone together in the birch forest. Anna's purpose was suspicious. She said that Achuri was her target, but she did not show any love for Achuri. Instead, She was like a hunter who wanted to conquer his prey, although Lily did not believe that Achuri was like that at all. Men will be prey. There is something wrong with this Anna. Her words and deeds are not what a female slave has. Her sixth sense is correct. This Anna is most likely one of the most important wishes of the original owner. Just based on her today when Juan said that he was not allowed to live, Lily could almost conclude this. Seeing that she didn't speak, Mrs. Roman reached out and pinched her unhappily, her face darkening. "Hey, what are you thinking about? I'm talking to you, didn't you hear it?" Lily raised her head in pain and stared at Mrs. Roman closely. Her eyes narrowed and there was a cold light in them. This look startled Mrs. Roman. She subconsciously took 2 steps back and was about to speak. Andrew's voice came over. "Countess, Miss Roman and I still have some matters to discuss in the temple. Can I talk to her alone?" The expression on Mrs. Roman's face that was about to open her mouth to scold suddenly froze. She saw Archbishop Andrew's gentle expression, and those eyes made her afraid to look directly. In the past, a figure like the Archbishop would not talk to an honorary aristocrat like Mrs. Roman who was nominated by her daughter. When Mrs. Roman saw him, she felt a little guilty instinctively. She nodded and watched helplessly as Andrew took Lily away and opened the door. While Achuri was leaning against a big tree, he looked here for an unknown amount of time. Archbishop Andrew took Lily out of Mrs. Roman's sight, and then he let go of the arm originally held by Lily and showed Achuri with a meaningful smile. He said, "I'm going back to the temple first." She came out with Andrew, but at this moment, Andrew left her to Achuri. Lily felt a little unhappy, and was about to call the Archbishop to stop, but Achuri had already reached out to hold her hand, and only gave her a gentle tug, and smoothly brought her into his arms. His tall body seemed to block all the cool night breeze. Lily, who was only wearing a thin sacrificial dress, pressed her back against Achuri, and the buttons of his hunting suit rubbed against her body through the gauze. Lily was about to struggle. He put his hands around her waist, put one palm on her lower abdomen, and used his free hand to rub her arm that had just been pinched by Mrs. Roman. Lily tried her best to stand farther away from him, but it was obvious that he didn't use much strength and was unable to make her struggle any farther, but he couldn't make the distance between the two any farther. "The temple sold you to me, madam, how could you escape?" When he spoke, his voice was very soft, and he buried his head next to Lily's neck, and his breath blew against Lily's ear, making her back tiny cold grains appeared. This situation was so close that Lily couldn't struggle away at all. On the contrary, the harder she struggled, the tighter Achuri held her. Finally, he simply circled his hands together, making her unable to struggle. Lily stretched out her hand to support his arm. Tried hard to straighten her back, but found that she couldn't stay away from him at all. This feeling of being powerless and being completely suppressed by someone, whether it was intelligence or force, had not appeared for a long time. She didn't even know why, for although the hug inside felt a little too close, it didn't seem too objectionable. "Sir, you are so rude. The temple does not represent myself, and the decision made by the Archbishop does not represent my meaning," she reminded, but Achuri seemed not to hear it. His lips she moved around Lily's ear vaguely, as if she didn't touch her, just her breath blowing her hair across her neck and earlobes. But it seemed as if she touched her, and a slight itch rose from the bottom of her heart. She couldn't help but think about it. Feeling the urge to escape, Achuri asked, "Is the show tonight good?" He did not follow her out. Lily even believed that Andrew would not miss any good opportunity to discuss cooperation issues with the Grand Duke, but he seemed to know everything. Lily was a little embarrassed, and some of the thoughts in her heart seemed like he seemed to see through everything at once. She pursed her lips and pretended to be dumb, but Achuri seemed to see through her thoughts. "You care so much about that slave girl. I brought her here to see you. Didn't you find anything interesting?" After Achuri finished speaking, he grabbed Lily's waist and turned her body around with only a slight force, making her face him. He lowered his head, and his curly blonde hair fell down to form shadows, covering his eyes. His thoughts were completely blocked. Lily looked up and could only vaguely see his slightly raised lips, tempting like a devil. "I did find something useful. Come back with me tonight and I will tell you." After saying that, he tightened his arms tighter and tighter, and finally lowered his head. When Lily thought he would kiss her lips, he ended up just touching his lips to her forehead. A feeling of joy surged out of her heart, but it soon made Lily a little wary. This Ichiri is really too dangerous. He is very good at cannibalizing people's psychology. He just did something that offended him, but just because he acted as if he wanted to kiss his lips, he felt tense and wanted to hide. But in the end he just touched her forehead. He seemed to be very restrained, and he even felt relieved because of it. However, he was disgusted with someone's touch at the beginning, and now the two of them were close together. It hasn't been that long yet. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come /U003C. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 981. Lily sneered, no longer pretending to be cute and weak before, her voice became colder. "Sir, you should be more restrained. A true noble gentleman should not force women to do anything. I am not interested in Anna, and I don't want to know the useful things that adults say." She hadn't finished her words yet. Arturi laughed. "I have been very restrained, otherwise madam, you shouldn't just stand here. If you are not interested in Anna, what about the light festival in half a month? Andrew told me, he is going to give you a mission to complete. Believe me, without my company, you will die there." After he said this, he reached out and released Lily. He didn't know if he hugged her too tightly just now, but when he let go, the night wind blew, and Lily shivered subconsciously. He watched coldly, and finally pulled Lily into his arms. "A true gentleman shouldn't take off his coat now and give it to me to put on, right? A truly smart gentleman would not take off his coat and give it to a lady at this moment, because a gentleman's body is far warmer than his clothes." Both of them consciously stopped mentioning what happened just now. When Leon drove the carriage over, just in time to see Lily looking up and glaring at Ichiri, his usually cold and reserved adult showed a rare smile. Lily failed to return to the temple in the end, and instead followed Arturi on the carriage. The dance in the royal garden was a long way away from the temple. Archbishop Andrew left on his own and threw her down. The Romans were still in ancient times. Carnival in the castle. As if he didn't want to leave, Arturi looked reserved and polite, but in fact he had a tough attitude. He helped her into the carriage without allowing her to refuse, but he was very restrained and did not do anything drastic that would make Lily unbearable. Leon did not prepare an extra guest room for Lily. She stayed in Ichiri's room after washing. There were no women's clothes here. She was wearing Ichiri's nightgown. The large black velvet nightgown almost fell to the floor when she put it on. She tied her waist with a belt. In addition to the bed, there was a long sofa chair in front of the window. Other than that, the room was clean and simple with no other decorations, just like the feeling Arturi gave people. Generally, the whole house is filled with his personal characteristics. It seemed very deserted. "Andrew wants you to join the trial team." Arturi came out of the bathroom wearing a bathrobe after taking a shower. His originally light blonde hair looked darker after being wet with water. He walked around. A pair of slender legs was looming in the nightgown, and a large chest was exposed from the double-breasted robe. Lily only glanced at it. "Just turn your face away and hear what he said." He turned his head again. What trial? Lily didn't know about this before. Andrew didn't even mention the news to her in the carriage when he came or when he just left. She vaguely felt that something was wrong. Ichiri heard, she asked with a meaningful look on her face. Under the dim light, he sat down on the sofa lazily. The look in his eyes was unclear, and Lily only felt that he was looking at her up and down. She subconsciously held the hem of her skirt tighter, and heard Arturai's voice. "There is a trial about the saint, and due to time constraints, you will have to leave within the next few days." Andrew didn't tell Lily about this, and she frowned. "I didn't hear the Archbishop say this. How could he tell you such an important thing before I agreed to cooperate with him?" Arturi raised his lips when he heard Lily's words, and the wet stains on his hair fell down his face. This image is not like the arrogant way he looked before. Lily had known that Andrew was not as gentle and kind as he appeared on the surface, but when she heard Arturai speaking so frankly about the matter, she fell silent. "Why?" After a while, she spoke. Arturi looked away from her and looked out the window. Under the starry sky, the Arturi family's manor was hidden in the night, and the rolling hills and fruit juices in the distance were visible. The trees seemed to have entered the landscape of the painting. Half of his fair profile almost glowed like white jade in the light. His eyes were like blue glass, without any warmth. His eyelashes were long and straight, and his lips were raised. There is a kind of contempt and indifference in his expression, as if he is watching a group of clowns performing, giving people a sense of indifference and alienation that is out of place and difficult to get close to. "You know that the Festival of Light is coming in advance." When Arturi said this, he did not look back. "The specific reasons are long and smelly. I believe Andrew has already talked to you. This so-called saintess trial, because Andrew said that the temple found the scepter of light." When Arturai said the last few words, the smile at the corner of his mouth seemed to be deeper, but the next moment his faint smile was restrained by him. He turned his head, and Lily heard the scepter of light. When she said these words, her heart started to jump. She instinctively felt that there was something wrong with Arturi's expression just now, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. She didn't like the feeling that this mission had to be explored everywhere, but she couldn't get to the bottom. However, she couldn't resist this mission, which inevitably made her eyes look a little irritated. "Look, ma'am, in fact I invited you to my home. It's just that Andrew wanted me to tell you about it." After Arturi finished speaking, he paused. "The temple will prepare and send someone out in 2 days. Treat this trip to find the scepter of light as the saints practice. If you find the scepter of light, you will naturally have made a great contribution. When you come back, you will become the core and top figure in the temple. Those who cannot go will naturally be killed. Eliminated. If Andrew can tie you to his boat, would you like to go to this trial?" Anna's matter was not over yet. The scepter of light, which had disappeared for many years, reappeared, and Andrew, an old fox, concealed such important news. Lily's heart was filled with curses. She was now being held on fire, and it was only because she entered the mission. The time was too short, and the time within 10 days was not enough for her to react. She had not penetrated into the core of the temple. She did not know many things, so that she knew these things from Arturai temporarily, which made her appear particularly passive. If she refuses Andrew's request, it is conceivable that she will not be able to stay in the temple in the future. When she has little strength, she will inevitably be suppressed by others. But unable to stay in the temple, Lily wanted to get the name of the Saint of Light. After all, this was the existence that the original owner in the plot had longed for and envied. Without knowing what the original owner's wish was, she can only spread as much as possible. Even if the original owner's wish is not to become a saint, she will try to stay in the temple, because the biggest possible target of this mission should be Anna. She has to keep an eye on Anna and cannot leave this place. But obviously it is not that easy to stay in the temple. Lily currently seems to have to go to this so-called trial for the task. But when a treasure like the Scepter of Light appears, there will definitely be a lot of people fighting for it. The opportunities along the way are high, but so are the dangers. Although there is a knight Brian beside her who is not weak, but after everything she saw before, it would be better if Brian did not take action to kill her, let alone ask him to protect her at a critical moment. Arturi personally followed when he opened his mouth to talk about it. Lily turned to look at him and tentatively said, "Sir, if I want to go, are you willing to help me? People like Arturi don't like so many things." At this time, he had already mentioned the trial to himself and talked about it. Cooperation with Andrew, then there must be some agreement between him and Andrew. Maybe he was originally planning to send someone to follow him. As soon as Lily asked this question, Arturi's eyelids drooped, and a few strands of wet hair stuck to his forehead. "If I am willing to help you, madam, what price are you willing to pay?" His words silenced Lily, and she couldn't speak for a long time. "Then what price do you want me to pay? After that, leave the temple and leave nowhere with me." "Arturi's family needs a Grand Duchess, madam," he said. "If it doesn't matter, why should I help you? If you are mine, then I will naturally be your loyal knight, and I will personally accompany you on this trial trip." Until early the next morning, when the carriage of the Arturi family sent her away from the beautiful manor, Lily's mind was still echoing with what Arturi had said. The proposal that should have been a passionate proposal was not what he said. In line with his personal style, his slightly raised eyebrows and condescending eyes when he spoke matched his reserved and cold tone at that time, as if it was still fresh in his mind, and things suddenly fell into a ridiculous whirlpool. In order to become a saint, in order to complete the task, Lily must participate in the saint's trial. But if she wants to complete the trial, she needs Arturi's help, and the price Arturi requires her to pay is let her leave the temple and leave the Nolii imperial capital with him. Lily would sneer when she thought about this kind of thing. Arturi was a cunning man, as cunning as a fox. He threw the dilemma to himself. He turned around and left, saying that he was giving Lily space to think. It's a pity that after he left, Lily didn't sleep well last night, and her face was still a little bad when she returned to the temple. She pushed open the door of her room, and Brian, who was not wearing knight armor, was sitting in her room, wondering what he was thinking, with a strange smile on his lips. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come.